see the
This meeting is being recorded.
greetings, fellow Freedom friends. David Allen Carmichael for Preservative Talk. This is Preservative Talk video. I'm here with my co-host, William Tell. He's going to give us some overtures today. And periodically, I give my my loving nickname for him, Elijah the Prophet. So who knows what I'll call him today, but it should probably be very friendly. So we're going to talk today about our episode. I believe this is episode 4 in Preservative Talk, and we're going to be talking about unnumbering a child who's been numbered at birth. And so we're going to show you some procedures. We're going to talk about law and some other things. So I'm going to introduce myself, my background quickly, and then William will give his background as well. And I'm currently a minister of the gospel who is an advocate for religious liberties. I've got a few cases in the United States courts where we've had some success. There's 4 published opinions in 3 different courts over the last 25 years or so. So that's my background right now. And so I've spent some time ministering to people who need help when their religious convictions come in, let's say, in conflict with standard bureaucratic norms. So I assist people in getting through those hurdles.
Okay. Glad to meet you. Yeah, so my background is, I guess I started out working as a partner for an attorney overseas, and all of our cases were helping Americans who felt that they were being oppressed or mistreated by the U.S. government. Did that for about 5 years, then I came back to the States. Got on and worked for a religious liberties law firm for 7 years as their lead counsel in a particular area. I've worked with David on a case in the past in the state where I live, a gentleman who was having his right to his occupation and to do what he was paid to for many, many years by the state. They took that right away because they suddenly wanted him to have registration with a social security number, which he didn't have. So in any event, we've been friends for many years, and I tend to be a pretty black and white guy. So I'll have my, I'm the co-host. So we'll see how that goes.
Hence your black shirt and white beard.
Yeah, black and white.
That's part of it. It's part of this is mystique. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to share, yes, I am. I'm going to share my my screen. We're going to go through an outline. We're going to be discussing our topic today. And then, so that's what we're going to do. This is Preservative Talk video. You guys can go to preservativetalkradio.com, and there's a couple of links there to some of my radio shows that I've done in the past. And so today, Preservative Talk, episode 4, unnumbering your child after enumeration at birth. And here's what we're going to do. We're going to talk a little bit about enumeration at birth program. We could probably do an entire episode just talking about this global move to register your child at birth. Every child has a right to be registered. It's a strange UN thing. The law and pitfalls of numbering, just some introduction to show you that there's some freedom here that most people they're unaware of the freedoms that they have, and also limits to the law and government and all that kind of stuff. So we'll talk about that. We'll show you some problems. And one instance of where a child was numbered contrary to the parents' direct express direction to not be numbered. And then what we'll do, we're going to show you what was done to fix the problem. Very simple, very effective. And then we'll have some open discussion and summary. Just to give ourselves a plug here, please share, please like, and subscribe. It's going to help to get this message out to as many people as we can. And we have a tip jar. Well, we don't have a tip jar today, so I'll save that for another time. Okay, here we go. So the first thing that I thought we'd mention is section 666 of the Federal Welfare Code. So 42 United States Code is the Health and Human Services Code. If you go to section 666, paragraph A13, we're going to do that right now. And so I'll read it to you, and then William and I will have some discussion about it. So I need to adjust my my share feature here. I got to and I I've got to work on my skill set with my sharing buttons. So it says share. And now we're going to have United States code. And I found this under there's a Cornell University website, and you can just type in either by phrase that you're looking for, or you can actually, if you know the actual code number and things like that, and you can get right to this statute. So it's paragraph, okay, we're down in D. So let's move back up, and there's C, B. All right, here we go. There's 3. So yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Oh boy. All right, a lot of bureaucracy here. 6. Let me do another page down. 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. So 666, 42 USC 666, recording of social security numbers in certain family matters. So for those of you who have been told the law requires you to number your child, it's not true. And notice here in the statute, recording of social security numbers in certain family matters, it says procedures requiring that social security number of, this is actually vague because we don't know what the certain family matters are. But let's see paragraph A. That's the kicker. Any applicant for a professional license, driver's license, occupational license, recreational license, or marriage license be recorded on the application. And I'll just make a couple of statements here, and then William, I'd like you to kick in some comment where you can. The point is here, if you've been associated with a social security number, the government will say you can't have a profession, an occupation, get married, go hunting or fishing, or drive a car without confessing this unique number as an element of your identity. And we're going to show you where the Social Security Administration has said this actually doesn't apply if you've been sharp enough to make sure that you have not been numbered. So what do you think about that, William?
Well, I was thinking earlier today about all this in our previous kind of test run to get prepared. And, because this is religiously connected, is that safe to say? Just to sit here and give people solutions or to teach people how to deal with challenges in a practical and legal standpoint might be very beneficial, may help a lot of people. But what came to my mind earlier today was what the Son of God said. What does it profit a man if he gains the whole world and loses his soul? So being a religiously oriented program, primarily probably of interest to people who have religious beliefs, therefore they're struggling with some of these things. I think it's critical that we not only cover the practical and legal issues and potential solutions, but we also need to blend that with what the scriptures say. I just felt that I should put that in.
That's good, because preservative talk. That's what this is. It's a salt and light.
Right. And
right.
So, in my own life, I ran into this situation a little bit different, but I think it's fascinating, with one of my children. But I think it's fascinating that, and not coincidental, that this particular law is numbered 666. It's purely coincidence.
Yeah.
I was on a trip to Canada that I was called to make. It wasn't my plan or my desire. In fact, I didn't even want to make the trip, but I ended up going without getting into all the details. And while I was there, I was using this gentleman's computer who had invited me to come. it was in Edmonton, Canada. And on the desktop of his computer, I saw a PDF file that said sin.pdf. And I thought, well, what's that? So I clicked on it and opened it up. And it stood for Social Insurance Number, which is the required number of what we call here the Social Security number. Same thing in Canada,
Right.
but it's called the Social Insurance Number. I thought it was quite telling that the PDF was called sin.pdf.
Providential.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's providential. And you'll probably see here, I think we've got a document that shows that when the act was written and signed, the numbering was 466. And because of however the numbers are shuffled when it gets into the US code, it comes out. So it wasn't sticking in the face of the people in Congress. When they signed it, they weren't looking at the number 666. I think there's a bigger hand in all of this, so there's but the point is, and we're always going to bring in a spiritual dimension to everything we do, because that's a reality of who we are and our obligations before the living God, especially when we're talking about religious protections of religious liberty and protections of your duty of religion toward God. So I'm going to go to the next thing. So let's see what the Social Security Administration,
which by the way, David, is a right. It's not a privilege. It's not a nice thing to have. It is an absolute right guaranteed by the highest law of the land.
Right. And we're going to go to the Declaration of Independence, that the government is instituted to protect your life, liberty, and it says pursuit of happiness. And someday we'll have an episode going into Sir William Blackstone's discussion of justice and the pursuit of happiness. So you can see what the pursuit of happiness actually meant to the writers. But that their purpose of government is to protect the rights and punish the wrongs. So religion is the duty you have to obey the Creator. That's the definition in the law of the land. So they have a duty to protect you in your duty to obey God. So it's the highest. So that's why they're instituted. So what we're going to do here is, so you're going to see in the law that, wait a minute, then how come it's causing problems for me? It's because they're even violating their own little rules. And we're going to look at that now. So here's the Social Security Administration policy statement. And I'm going to unshare where I was and share the new window. And there it is. So let me see if I can expand this. And this is the Office of Child Support Enforcement. So let's say, for instance, and my kids went to get a driver's license. I think my oldest child, when she was 15 and a half, they sent security and kicked us out of the DMV. So I had a number of years of my children didn't have driver's licenses, but that just means they didn't have a piece of paper. It didn't stop them from using their automobile under the circumstance. So look what it says. The Social Security Administration says, even though the states are out there saying you can't have a driver's license unless you confess this number. If you look at the second paragraph, it says section 6, notice the number here, 466A13. That's from the actual act itself, the act of Congress. When they signed it, the number was 466, and it got translated in the US Code to 666. Section 466 of the Social Security Act requires states to implement procedures requiring that the Social Security number of any applicant for, all those licenses. And then it says requires procedures requiring that the numbers of any individual for other things. It goes on and says that. Now, but let's go to the next paragraph and their interpretation. Let me see if I can zoom in a little bit. Bad idea. Okay, we interpret the statutory language to require the states have procedures that to require a Social Security number that he or she may have. Section 466 of the Act does not require that an individual have a Social Security number as a condition of receiving a license, etc. And then it goes on to advise states. Again, here they are, the United States law quasi ordering states to do what they want to do or what they think is advisable. And that would be to just fill out an application saying you don't have a number. An affidavit. So what do you think, William?
Well, partly what I want to say is my understanding about where this originated is consistent with that letter. And that is that it originated with that particular office or for the purposes of policing deadbeat dads. Okay.
Yes, right.
That was the intent of that legislation, supposedly.
Right.
And so right off the bat, anyone that has the ability to employ critical thinking has to wonder, well, if that's intended to police deadbeat dads, what about dads that are still married? What about dads that have no children? What about women who can't possibly be a deadbeat dad? What about young people who aren't married and don't have children? And why are all of those people across the board being required and mandated under these laws to engage in and provide information that shouldn't even apply to them based on the intent of the letter of the law?
That's right. It's called overbreadth. It's an unconstitutional overbreadth issue. And again, another episode we'll get to, we're going to talk about this thing where the United States, we'll call it the federal law, is now mandating things for states to do in violation of the 10th Amendment. And right. What powers do they really have? And how actually sinister and sick the application of this Section 666 is having its way in every state of the land because it doesn't make sense. Well, let's say hypothetically, somebody gets a vasectomy. Some 65-year-old man gets a vasectomy just so he can get a driver's license because he's going to put himself in a position of never having any children, never being able to ever have any children. But it doesn't matter that, it says under certain family matters. So this is something that needs to be addressed, and it's going to take more episodes than that. So our position or our purpose today, right now, is to share with you if your child gets numbered. Now, again, what the Social Security Administration said is no number, no 666 requirement. You're off the hook. Doesn't apply to you. See, you're not in those certain family matters. Now, you still could be a deadbeat dad, an unnumbered deadbeat dad. And then what they'd have to do is use a constitutional process to come get you to fulfill your duties as a parent. And those constitutional processes are still there. But if you
and they were there.
Yeah, and they're still
and they were there before this thing was ever even enacted.
Correct. And actually, we could do a whole different episode where it starts at Section 654, and you're going to see these totally unconstitutional intrusions on people's lives under this statute. It needs to be addressed. Who knows how that might get taken care of in the near future. We're doing some things. So SSA says you don't need a SSN. And I'm not actually going to go to this link. What I'm going to do is go to I'm going to skip the Miller letter also. I'm going to go to another letter because the Miller letter and this redacted letter where a friend gave me a letter that was sent to him, the redacted letter has the same information as the Miller letter, but then a little bit more. So let me just go ahead and go to this other letter as I come back, and I guess I need to unshare again, and then I share under this Zoom program, and it switches back and forth. So here we are. This is a letter from the Social Security Administration to a guy who said, what's the law regarding this number and whether or not I have to get one for my children? And look at this very important paragraph here. The Social Security Act does not require a person to have a Social Security number to live and work in the United States, nor does it require a Social Security number simply for the purpose of having one. Now, before I go on, they're going to go on and explain about everybody else's interest in a social security number. And then they, at the very end of it, they explain that they have no authority to explain everybody else's interest. So from this point on, it's frivolous, it's useless information. But this is the spoiler alert for American society. It's completely voluntary. And what about we'll get to that. We'll get to those other issues. But in reality, just know if you're having qualms about this, you're having like conscience problems. You know, you're not doing things in faith. You're not when you have a child, you don't really want to sign the form, but you don't know if you're violating the law. You are free to make sure that your child is not numbered. What do you think, William?
Well, it's interesting because I didn't know what the quote unquote Miller letter was. But while you were doing that, I pulled up a copy of the same exact letter. And I've got that open on my computer, and I was gonna share it
Okay.
when you were done sharing your letter. But since it's the same exact letter, we'll just we'll go with the flow right now.
Right. Okay. So, and this is the statement I was making. So that I'm not even going to go into all the terrible, scary things they just said for the several other paragraphs, because I'm going to come down to the bottom of this letter where it says the Social Security Administration has no authority to interpret or enforce a law as it applies to programs that we do not administer. Well, they also have no authority to tell you what the other programs provide. And it turns out that we've helped people get jobs from U.S. employers. Unnumbered people get hired by non-activist employers who just wanted to hire somebody who they liked the person, they liked their work ethic, and they wanted to hire them, and wondered what to do about the forms they've got to fill out with the IRS. And then we've helped people get that documentation to the employer and things that the employer could send to the IRS, and actually show them what the law actually says. And it's been very refreshing to watch people who really care about, businesses that are like, man, I don't want this hassle. And that's usually the problem. I just don't want the hassle. But people who are open, and so far, there's been Christian and secular employers didn't have an interest in it. I think the secular employer was really good, had the interest in the person and wanted that person to be able to work for them. And it was like, no problem. So ranchers hiring ranch hands, all kinds of stuff. So it's been encouraging. So I'm going to share our outline. Yeah, go ahead, William.
I was just going to say, if you go to now, I don't know if I was just looking it up as you were speaking, but if you go to the Code of Federal Regulations, Title 20, Part 422, 103, 104, which covers Social Security numbers, and let me see, 104, who can be assigned a Social Security number. Now, unless they've changed it, which they may have. So, my information may be a little outdated, but some of the notes that I have based on the Internal Revenue Service facts information they put out, Social Security numbers can only be issued to federal employees for use only in the performance of their official duties. See Code of Federal Regulations, Title 20, Chapter or Part 422.104.
Yes.
So,
yeah. And if you go to the statute that says who needs to get an employer identification number,
yeah,
you'll be shocked. It's like 3 entities in the federal government, in the United States government, are required by law to become U.S. employer. So everybody's going out there filling out an SS4 form to become a U.S. employer and putting themselves under this umbrella where now that certain family member or certain whatever applies to them because they've asked for it. Churches have become employers.
Yeah, let's talk about that real quick.
I want to be careful because that could be we don't want to go down that rabbit trail. It's just kind of I'd rather that just be like a a teaser for another episode.
Yeah, I don't want to make a big
Okay.
thing out of it. I just want to say that whether we're talking about the enumeration of a child for Social Security or anything related to law, a major pitfall that people need to be aware of has to do with the nexus that's created by contracting. So anytime you make a voluntary application for anything, you know, whether or not you should have, or whether or not you really want to be after the fact, all of that's irrelevant. What's relevant is that you have a current contract, and by your voluntary application to be part of that contract, you are now governed by the rules that apply to that contract.
That's right. So so our goal here is, you know, there's a lot we could talk about. So, and because we've had a couple of decades of dealing with these issues, there's going to things that just pop out of us because we can't help it. You know, we got loaded information. So our goal is to get you to the point, even here today with this video, is we want to give you the backdrop of the information before we tell you, well, if this happens, here's the fix. Okay. So and I just want to point out that I have a form I found online that people that prepare taxpayer, you know, somebody, you're going to go to a tax person and they're going to fill out your forms. They have a PTIN, a preparer's tax identification number, that the IRS issues them, even if they don't have a social security number. So it's just a record accounting number between them and the Internal Revenue Service when they fill out the forms and represent somebody, even though they themselves are unnumbered because it's not required to be numbered by law. And then there's another thing I won't show you right up here, but yeah, I will. I'm going to do this because I want to kind of point out again, there's language that I think that we, let me stop. I got to stop sharing and now I got to share. There's language that you don't normally notice, but when you see certain words, you realize, wait a minute, this isn't the normal word. So here's a Arizona, if you need some subsistence assistance from the state, you know, and you need some food or some other assistance that's provided by taxpayer money. Let's say you go, you know, most people think, oh, you're not eligible for it unless you can give them a social security number. Well, guess what? Notice that word exception. And I just want to highlight, mostly we hear the term, there's an exemption. I got a religious exemption. Well, there's sometimes the word exception is used, and the word exception is used when the silly law doesn't apply to you. You're like William said, that, you know, you're not in that contract relationship, so you don't need an exemption from them. And if you're free, you get an exception because you're accepted from the requirement. And if you want to look into that further, interesting reading is Title 26, Section 508 regarding churches. It says they're not exempted from the 501c requirements. They are accepted from it. What do you think, William?
That's right. I was going to mention that, but you beat me to the punch as usual.
So well, I have the outline. I'm the guy in control. I'm the guy behind the curtain, right?
Yeah. Well, I'm the co-host, so I always get the scraps. But
yes, you do. So you know, you get the and we got 10 minutes on this segment. I just got the warning. You know, a little buzzer. Okay. So it's a good time for a reminder, and then I'll just kind of lead us into the next half, which is going to get the procedure to unnumbering. But as a reminder, I want you to click share. Am I sharing the screen right now? Do you see it, Elijah? Yeah, I am. It says sharing, right? So I want you to click share. I want you to like. And in some cases, actually, under the there's going to be a link under this video that takes you to a Streamlabs link where if you're really inspired, and what it is people told me I need to give people an opportunity to support what we're doing. And we can do a lot more if we actually had support. So I need to just go ahead and humble myself and say, hey, we're going to provide a mechanism for you to provide support. So support it. Here's the link. Support at Stream for support. You go to streamlabs.com/David Allen Carmichael, and you'll have an opportunity. And depending on your screen and what's in front of you, you may have a little tip cup. that you can click. So that's it. So now the Code of Federal Regulations, we're going to just get into this, and then we'll actually probably, let me see what this says. I'm gonna open it up for us. I'm gonna stop the share that I'm doing on my presentation, and then I'm gonna click the actual Code of Federal Regulations, and we'll summarize this, and then we'll take a break. We're gonna come back for part 2. Social Security numbers. This is under the Code of Federal Regulations, and it says Social Security Administration maintains a record of the earnings reported for each individual assigned a Social Security number. So if you're an employee of a United States employer, that doesn't mean somebody who's on the land. It's somebody filled out an SS4 form and became one of these employers that William talked about under that specific regulation he talked about earlier. The individual's name and Social Security number identify the record. Wait a minute. I thought it was your identity. No, it identifies a record. Do you have a Social Security number? No. There's a record with one, and that identify the record so that wages or self-employment income reported for or by the individual can be properly posted to the individual's record. So theoretically, you can work for somebody, you can be an employee, or even whatever you do. You let's say you're paying employment taxes. You're an employee for an employer. You don't give them a number, but you keep a record what's put into it. Technically, there will come a day that you could present evidence of what you paid. I don't recommend it because you're going to have to get a Social Security number to get the money, likely. Maybe there's a way you could sue the United States. I don't know. That's way down the road, way down in the weeds. But the thing I wanted to point out here is this is a record number. It's a Social Security account record number. And we're at war with this beastly spiritual system that would have you embrace this number as an element of your identity, as if you are a record of the government.
Right.
What do you think?
Let me interject now, because I wasn't able to earlier, because you covered it, and this is back to the spiritual aspect of all this. Both King David and King Saul committed the same sin as recorded in the Bible, and that was that they numbered the people of Israel. Yeah. And I just want to read a quick excerpt from 2 Samuel 24:10. It says, "And David's heart smote him after that he had numbered the people. And David said unto the Almighty, I have sinned greatly in that which I have done, but now, O Jehovah, put away, I beseech thee, the iniquity of thy servant, for I have done very foolishly." So all the way back to the days of David and Saul, there's been an agenda, which is the agenda of the enemy, the devil, to number people. And we see that even today and just in what we've covered so far today, and we've just scratched the surface. There's holes everywhere. I mean, the more you look at this and the more you look at the actual law, the more you realize that this is a bamboozle job. People are taking a number, people are being numbered, and as they call it in Canada, the SIN, the social insurance number, right? That they're not required to have, and they really shouldn't be taking, and they're not even eligible to have by law. In fact, we could go there, but I'm not going to bring the reference right now. It's a crime. It's a crime for you to have a Social Security number if you're not required to by your federal office. So if you're not a federally employed individual, you're not eligible for a Social Security number, and to have one is a crime, according to the law. Right. So this is quite a Methuselah's web of magic, make believe and deception, requiring people to get numbered. Yeah. And so, and as we're closing up this part one, because we're going to come back, we're going to show you an example of where somebody filled out a form that they get at the hospital, and they put all the right things that says, whatever you do. In fact, they overdid it, saying, no, I don't want a number for my child.
and then the Social Security Administration sends them a Social Security card. And we're going to look at the procedure that's in the Social Security Administration's Policy and Operations Manual that tells their employees what to do when somebody complains about it. And we're going to see that they actually try, in the instruction, it gives them a procedure that dissuades people from having them fix the problem. It's very, and as William says, it's deceptive. So there's something sublime motivating this. It's surrounded by this just bad stuff, and it's showing itself as an angel of light. And so there's some more segments we could do another time. As we're talking, I'm thinking of things we can talk about. Is actually do a segment about what the role of the church is. What is the role of the family? What is the role of church in social benevolence to take care of one another in various situations? So what we're going to do is we're just going to close up right now. Share,
quick
subscribe, and William, you got something to say? We got 2 minutes.
People that have watched this or will watch this that want to help guide the discussion, that want to ask questions, that want to give suggestions, that want to know about something that we covered but we didn't cover conclusively, or to the end, let's say. How can they communicate with us? How can they do that?
That's good. So you could send a email to david@freedomministries.life. That's david@freedomministries.life. Also, there's going to be comments here. It's going to be put on YouTube. So you're going to have an opportunity to make a comment. And there's a little flag, a little bell, little hyperlink's going to pop up and let me know that a comment's been made. And you can ask questions that way. So that's it. All right. Okay. So we're going to close up here in session 1. Thank you for attending at this point, and William and I will be right back.